An unexpected financial storm is brewing, and this time it's coming from Europe. Germany and Italy are now in serious talks about withdrawing 1930 tons of gold, valued at an eye-popping $209 billion from the New York Federal Reserve, and transporting it back to Europe. The gold would be moved within 8 to 10 weeks, with NATO cargo planes handling the midnight transfers. Public opinion is deeply split in Berlin. Some argue the gold should stay in U.S. vaults for safety. Others, fueled by rising distrust, demand it be brought home. Meanwhile, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni sees the bullion as a critical bargaining chip. As tensions rise between Rome and Washington over trade policies, so what's German Chancellor Friedrich Merz doing in response to the pressure from within his country? Why is the opposition party AfD ramping up calls for full repatriation? And what impact could this have on U.S. financial dominance? If trust in the Fed's gold storage begins to waver, after standing strong for over 80 years, it could trigger higher U.S. borrowing costs and challenge the dollar's position as the world's reserve currency. Let's unpack the implications of this brewing crisis. By mid-2025, the debate over gold storage had turned into a full-scale diplomatic standoff. Germany and Italy, two of the biggest gold holders in Europe, had long stored large portions of their reserves at the New York Fed, a legacy of the post-WTO International Security Order. But a leaked strategy document unveiled plans to bring those reserves back to Europe using coordinated military logistics. Berlin's streets may be calm, but inside political circles the debate is heated. According to Germany's central bank, the Bundesbank, the country holds 3,352 tons of gold. Of this, 236 tons, worth roughly $134 billion at a spot price of $33.66 per ounce, are still located in the U.S. Italy, with 2,451 tons in total, reportedly keeps around 700 tons in American vaults, equivalent to around $75 billion. Combined, that's nearly $210 billion of European wealth sitting in American hands. Germany's right-wing AfD party is using the gold issue as a rallying cry for national sovereignty. Their long-standing stance all of Germany's gold should be stored at home. Party co-leader Alice Weidel has been vocal, warning that the country's wealth is being held hostage in America. In a fiery press conference in April 2025, Weidel condemned CDU leader Friedrich Merz, accusing him of being too willing to make concessions to Washington. Her argument, if Italy is preparing to retrieve its gold, why shouldn't Germany? Weidel's stance taps into public unease over Germany's reliance on U.S.-based reserves and the perceived risks of U.S. political volatility. This isn't uncharted territory. Between 2013 and 2017, Germany quietly repatriated 674 tons of gold from New York and Paris to Frankfurt. Using IL-76 and C-17 cargo planes under NATO coordination, they completed the mission with precision. The logistical blueprint is there. What's missing now is political will. Chancellor Merz is walking a tightrope. On one side, he faces growing pressure from AfD and public opinion. On the other, the Bundesbank has called the New York Fed a reliable and friendly custodian, signaling institutional reluctance. But Merz may see an opportunity. With U.S. tariffs on German autos and steel looming under the Trump administration, he could use the gold issue as a form of leverage in trade talks. The unspoken message to Washington? Respect our terms or we bring the gold home. Interestingly, even members of Merz's CDU have begun expressing concern. Markus Ferber, a seasoned MEP, warned of U.S. overreach and cited Trump's comments on central banks as a red flag. German media outlets, including Bild, ZDF, and ARD, have jumped on the story, fueling public awareness. Italy's Giorgia Meloni also finds herself in a tricky position. While her government tries to calm tensions with the U.S., her previous promises to return the gold home are resurfacing. Italy is facing increasing pressure amid trade disputes with Washington, and Meloni's critics argue that she may be forced to act on her pledge to maintain credibility. She, too, could use gold as diplomatic leverage. Italian and German central banks are reportedly drawing up joint logistics plans, eyeing weekly nighttime shipments of 50 to 60 tons via military aircraft. The scale of this potential operation could lead to a visible shrinkage in the Fed's gold reserves and alter market sentiment. Though technically a neutral balance sheet action for the Fed, the symbolic impact is massive. If two of America's oldest allies begin withdrawing massive reserves, it could send shockwaves through global markets. Investors may interpret the move as a loss of faith in U.S. financial stability. That could lead to tighter liquidity, a spike in treasury yields, and a weakening of the dollar's safe haven status. This is more than just a story about bullion. It's a test of global trust. The gold tug-of-war between Europe and the U.S. is heating up. Will Chancellor Merz use it as leverage or play it safe? Will Prime Minister Meloni follow through on her nationalist promise? And will this shake the foundation of global monetary trust? In the first week of the month, the volume imbalance between bids and offers in the Federal Reserve's daily overnight reverse repo operations surpassed $20 billion. This raised the risk of pushing the federal funds rate toward the upper end of its target range. While the New York Fed has enough tools to ease this pressure, such as raising repo caps, the shock could still cause a 10 basis point rise in Treasury yields. This, in turn, could elevate mortgage rates and corporate borrowing costs. But there's a deeper issue at play: a possible structural change in global demand for U.S. Treasuries. Germany and Italy's recent moves to repatriate gold from the Fed's vaults suggest a broader strategy to reduce short-term U.S. debt holdings. The market estimates their combined Treasury bill portfolio is worth about $18 billion. Offloading these assets could increase the 10-year Treasury yield by another 5 to 6 basis points. The implications are far-reaching. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that federal interest payments, already at $659 billion in 2024, will rise to $770 billion by 2026. Though returning gold doesn't result in an immediate outflow of dollars, it could undermine the perception of U.S. Treasuries as the ultimate safe haven, effectively raising the long-term cost of U.S. borrowing. Initially, the dollar might strengthen due to tighter liquidity, but in the medium term, the erosion of confidence could pressure the U.S. dollar index, DXY, downward. If other mid-sized reserve holders like the Netherlands, Austria, or Belgium follow Germany and Italy, the shift could accelerate. According to data from the Bank for International Settlements, gold accounted for 11% of central bank reserves in 2000. By the end of 2024, that number has doubled to over 20%. If this trend continues and gold reaches 25% of global reserves by 2028, the dollar could lose 4 to 5% of its share in global reserves, potentially translating to an $800 billion drop in demand for treasuries. This could shift the neutral interest rate in the U.S. from the current 2.53% to about 3.5%, making it harder for the Fed to control inflation. The housing market would be among the first to feel the pinch. As of mid-2025, the average 30-year mortgage stands at 6.62%, according to Mortgage News Daily. If Treasury yields rise by 13-15 basis points, mortgage rates could rise by 20-25 basis points. That would increase monthly payments on a $350,000 loan by about $30 and yearly costs by $380. With such costs, new home starts may fall by 5.6 to 6% in 2026, cutting demand for building materials like cement and steel by roughly 2 million tons. Meanwhile, the auto industry would feel the stress more gradually, as auto loan rates near 85%. And with rising labor costs in states like Michigan and Ohio, higher borrowing costs could result in a drop of up to 500,000 car sales per year, threatening over 10,000 manufacturing jobs. Municipal governments won't escape unscathed either. If local bond yields rise 30 basis points in line with Treasury rates, major infrastructure projects could be delayed or retendered, slowing regional growth. Faced with these pressures, the Fed might consider unconventional tools. One short-term fix could be a covered bond window, allowing banks to use gold as collateral. This would make gold more liquid on balance sheets, but also risks weakening the dollar's role as the world's reserve currency. Another alternative might be to expand dollar swap lines with the ECB and other advanced economies. Yet, these swaps are only effective if global trust in the dollar remains intact. Once credibility slips, the cost of maintaining stability rises significantly. On the international front, Germany's internal politics are heating up. Even as the Bundesbank reaffirms confidence in the New York Fed, public calls for gold repatriation have reached the German parliament. In Italy, the decision will hinge on the outcome of trade talks with Washington, especially over steel and aluminum tariffs. If Rome fails to secure favorable terms, its own gold repatriation efforts could accelerate through the Villa Borghese Vault project. More than just a matter of metal, these moves signal a larger psychological shift, a breaking away from the post-Bretton Woods faith in the dollar. As trust erodes, the U.S. Treasury market could evolve into one that demands consistently higher risk premiums. The result? A normalized trade deficit stuck around 6%, a debt service burden rivaling defense spending, and a permanently more expensive dollar. This shift would reshape investment and consumption patterns across the U.S. economy. In the end, each bar of gold removed from the Fed's vault serves as a reminder. Paper money is only as strong as the trust behind it. What do you think? Is this a passing phase or the beginning of a long-term shift? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to stay informed. Thanks for watching.